Hello and welcome to the Deathly Dark Tours of York. Although this isn't a tour, this is a different thing. This is something I'm going to try out over the next few months and just sort of see if anybody gives a flaming hoot, really. I am, for those of you who don't know, a historically spooky tour guide who works and lives and dwells and operates here in the city of York, that is known as the most haunted city in all of Europe. Professional spookologist is the term that I like to use. My name is Dorian Deathly, and you have discovered my little pocket of the internet where I'm going to be sharing some rather bizarre and macabre things. And as I've been digging around, I've decided to sort of broaden my horizons a bit, if you would, and go a little bit further than the history of York. Still going to be sticking with the murders and the awful goings-on and the despotic foul bits and pieces and whatnot. And I've decided to bring a bit of culture into your lives. Therefore, welcome, friends, to the best deaths in William Shakespeare's complete works. And before you click off immediately, you've got to understand that I get it. I get it. Shakespeare was not introduced to most of you in the best way, myself included. I remember being a wee snip of a lad sitting in a dusty, dry classroom and being forced in mass numbers to slowly drag our way through the back catalogue of William Shakespeare. You boy, read this part. You girl, read this part. And we would sit there and in our laboured and dull tones we would try our best to inject a bit of fizz into the works of William Shakespeare. I hated Shakespeare at school. I genuinely loathed English lessons because, having to experience it in that really dry and horrible, dusty way was just not good. But here's the thing, Shakespeare is bloody brilliant. Seriously, it's brilliant and it's bloody. This is the thing so many people don't understand. It's almost like a Tarantino of its time. There's blood and guts, there's betrayal, there's sex, there's violence, there's more blood, more guts. It's all in there. Some of them are hilarious, some of them are absolutely tragic, some of them are a little bit thick with history, that's true. But the thing is this, people don't often understand how fantastic they can actually be. So, I'm going to change your world, hopefully. I'm going to provide for you today some of my academic work. I have collected the 7 best deaths in William Shakespeare. So, let's begin. Number 7, King Hamlet in Hamlet. Shakespeare's longest play features loads of interesting and hilarious deaths, and the last act is absolutely nothing short of a bloodbath. There are main characters dropping like flies. But by far the weirdest death in the entire story comes in right at the start of it all, with the death of King Hamlet, the father of our Danish hero, or Daddy Ham, as I hear he liked to be called in the bedroom. Now, Shakespeare loved ghosts, and he would try and squeeze ghosts into any story that he could at any available opportunity. And in the case of Daddy Ham, he is all too willing to share the beans, to spill the guts as to what happened to him. It was poison. Now, here's the thing. If you decide to try to poison somebody, no judgment here at all, chances are you're going to go for the food, for the drink, get it into them in a sneaky way. In the case of Hamlet, it was actually applied by his own brother, Hamdad's own brother, Claudius. He decides to take the non-traditional route of administering this poison, and he actually drips it into his ear. Now, we meet the ghost of Hamdad 3 times in the play, and he loves to chat. He loves to chat. When it comes to explaining how he died, he doesn't hold back. The speech that is sort of the bulk of his dialogue weighs in at a massive 50 lines. Now, the most important one goes, and I quote, "Upon my secure hour, thy uncle stole, with juice of cursed Hebanon in a vial, and in the porches of my ears did pour the leprous distilment, whose effect holds such enmity with the blood of man." Now, the identity of Hebanon has been a topic of discussion over the years. Some think it might be hemlock, but Hebanon just kind of sounds nicer, and it fits in with the iambic, it's harder to say, the iambic pentameter, that lovely that you get within the Shakespearean language. Some say that the side effects of the poison have more in common with the sap of a yew tree. Either way, the symptoms are a bad time. You have accelerated heart rate, muscle tremors, convulsions, collapse, difficulty breathing, circulatory impairment, and eventually cardiac arrest. Poison in the ear. Number 7. Not bad, not bad. Number 6, Clarence from Richard III. Oh, poor George, or the Duke of Clarence, as his proper title would afford him. Now, Richard III is truly one of the Bard's more complex and confusing plays. It's one of the ones that people encounter very early on, and it does tend to be a little bit dry and dusty. There is a lot of going on of the betrayal and the treachery. If you don't have a kind of basic knowledge of British medieval politics, chances are Richard III can leave you feeling a little bit excluded. The crown is passed around like a hot potato, and in recent years there have actually been direct comparisons from Richard III and a lot of the Shakespearean historical plays to Game of Thrones. Just, less tits and dragons, which isn't, always a bad thing. Keep the lying, the constant betrayal, and the backstabbing. It's all there, but the character we're focusing on here is the Duke of Clarence, also known as Richard III's little brother. Now, even though his death is a bit of an anticlimax, he's ultimately stabbed and then drowned in a Malmsey butt. A Malmsey butt is a bucket of water with loads of apples fermenting in it like a cider. The scene is notable because it goes on for almost 18 pages in the Arden Shakespeare edition.
He took forever, and ever, and ever.
What a speech he has. I have spent a miserable night, so full of fearful dreams of ugly sights that as I am a Christian, faithful man, I would not spend another such night, though it were to buy a world of happy days. So full of dismal terror was the time. You've got to feel for George, right? All of his brothers get a shot at being the king, and what does he get? He gets locked up in the Tower of London on a trumped-up murder charge, and eventually he's brutally killed in the darkness by a pair of completely useless murderers. His final pages in the play are essentially one long monologue, as he sort of prepares himself to be killed, as the murderers, in fact, prepare to steel themselves to do the killing. You almost think he's going to get away with it. And then suddenly, take that! And that, and if all this will not do, I'll drown you in a Malmsey butt too. Farewell, Clarence. Drown in a bucket of wine or cider. It's not the worst way to go. Number 5, Lady Macbeth. Now, Lady Macbeth is by far one of the most important characters in the Scottish play, so therefore I find it a bit bizarre that her death actually occurs off-screen, off-stage. After 5 acts of conspiring and plotting, slowly losing her marbles, the death of Lady M is simply announced by an unnamed soldier who walks on stage and says, "The Queen is dead, my lord." To which Macbeth replies, "I've actually got quite a lot going on at the moment, so, thanks for letting me know." In earlier scenes, Lady Macbeth has gone completely mad. Her doctor and her nurse have been watching her sleepwalk around the place. She's constantly washing her hands out damn spot, symbolically, of course, representing her guilt due to the part she played in all these murders. We never really find out how she dies, simply that she does die. The closest we get is a line from Malcolm, right towards the end of the play, who says something along the lines of producing forth the cruel ministers of this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, who, as 'tis thought, by self and violent hands took of her own life, sort of suggesting that she killed herself. A lot of cinematic film adaptations, a lot of plays, in fact, have kind of pushed towards the angle that she hurls herself off one of the battlements of the castle after her slow descent into madness. But it is thought bizarre that Shakespeare chose to kill her off stage with just a single utterance of a line from an unnamed soldier after asking the audience to invest so much time into her earlier on in the play. Just lazy writing. Number 4, Romeo and Juliet. From Romeo and Juliet.
I defy you, stars!
Now, if only they just... this is the thing. If only they just sat down and had a cup of tea, yeah? A little bit of a chat. 6 people die in Romeo and Juliet. That is the most beloved of the Bard's romances, even viewed as a sort of tragic comedy by some people. Mercutio is slain by Tybalt. Tybalt is then slain by Romeo. Paris is killed by Romeo. Romeo kills himself by poison. Juliet stabs herself upon Romeo's body. Mercutio and Tybalt die because Romeo can't articulate himself very well. He can't talk about his feelings very smoothly.
Juliet!
There's that bit when he's trying to explain to Tybalt what's going on, and it all comes out as, I do protest, I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst devise, till thou shalt know the reason of my love, and so, dear Capulet, which name I tender as dearly as my own, be satisfied. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Honestly, if he just explained what had gone on, nobody needed to die. He's weirdly cryptic about the whole thing, and of course it all ends in the deaths of Mercutio, accidentally stabbed by Tybalt while aiming for Romeo. Tybalt is then murdered by Romeo, who has a bit of a hissy fit and a tantrum, when really it's kind of all of his fault.
Thou art deceived!
Poor Paris, he's the fellow earlier on, played excellently by Paul Rudd in the 90s adaptation by Baz Luhrmann, dressed as a spaceman, weirdly, for a lot of the film. He's actually in love with Juliet, and he... Yeah, in the film it kind of skips over it a little bit, I think, but in the stage plays, Romeo definitely just tanks it in there and runs the poor bastard through. Then it's the main event. Juliet takes a sleeping draught, of course, provided by Friar Lawrence. Everybody, including Romeo, believes that she has died. He, of course, goes tanking in, sees her all dead and that. He necks some poison, he dies. So it's sleeping draught, not dead, poisoned, very dead. Then, of course, Juliet wakes up, sees Romeo dead, and then she takes his dagger and she stabs herself in the heart.
Juliet!
Yeah. Just when you think it all can't get any bleaker, alas, my liege, says Montague, my wife is dead tonight. Grief of my son's exile hath stopped her heart. Grief of my son's exile hath stopped her heart. That's right. She hears that Romeo has been banished and she just dies. She's just so sad, she just dies. Of a broken heart. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Number 3, Coriolanus. Coriolanus, often referred to as the anus play. You got to pronounce it very carefully. Coriolanus is one of the Bard's more obscure plays. It follows the misadventures of a Roman commander who upsets and enrages pretty much everyone that he encounters. Now, towards the end of the play, the audience are rooting for his death, and it doesn't disappoint. Shakespeare almost genuinely wrote Coriolanus just for people to hate, like a panto villain almost. He wants people to be foaming at the mouth, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. Oh, they do. Oh, they do. He ends up surrounded by a bloodthirsty crowd who are screaming and baying for his death, and one of the final lines proves to be inspirational for those gathered. He says, "Cut me to pieces," Vol says, "men and lads, stain all your edges on me," referring to the sword blades, the sharp edges of the weapons, "stain them with my blood." And oh my gosh, they do. The line in the text that follows is just simply credited to all the people. All the people. Tear him to pieces. Do it presently. He killed my son, my daughter. He killed my cousin Marcus. He killed my father. It goes a bit Monty Python at this point. It's just loads of people bellowing stuff out. All the extras that didn't get like a good line early on in the play, they're taking the opportunity. They're, yeah, kill him, shank him right up, yeah, string up his gizzards, pull him out of his bumhole. It's just beautiful. Now, in many adaptations of Coriolanus, he's actually pulled to shreds. There are some who go so far as offering, this is a genuine thing that I've seen happen, they give little waterproof ponchos to the people in the front audience because the blood spatter is going to be so enormous. They are going to spray blood and guts. I've seen a lot of people use ribbons. I've seen people use offal, actual pig intestines, dragging them out and throwing them all over the place. Oh my gosh. Now, there is a stage direction a little further down that says Aufidius stands over his body, implying that there is a body to be stood on, but a lot of productions sort of ignore this entirely and just really get stuck in. You gotta give the people what they want. Number 2, Timon from Timon of Athens.
Hakuna Matata.
I've included this one because, in a way, it's just, I think it's genuinely both one of the most undiscussed yet completely tragic deaths in Shakespeare's works. After a long series of really bad decisions and misunderstandings and terrible luck and misfortune, poor old Timon just decides that everyone hates him and he just wanders off. He sits down in a cave and he dies. Here lies a wretched corpse, of wretched soul bereft. Seek not my name, a plague consume me, wicked cateless left. Here lie I, Timon.
Very nice. Thanks.
Now, there's got to be a special mention to Antigonus here. He's not on the list, but I'm giving him like a kind of, just before I give you the number one most horrific deaths in Shakespeare, Antigonus is a character in Winter's Tale who famously exits pursued by a bear. And of course, Enobarbus from Antony and Cleopatra, who I believe utters one of the most memorable lines from the play. He says of Cleopatra, "Age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety. Other women cloy the appetites they feed, but she makes hungry where she most satisfies." After which, he sort of gives up hope entirely, goes and sits down in a wet ditch and dies. It's a bit of a running theme in Shakespeare, just people getting properly gutted and really upset about everything, just being so depressed that they just go, that'll do, and then they're dead. In at the number one spot, it's a triple hitter. It's a triple hitter, my friends. I've given for Titus Andronicus, Chiron, Demetrius, and Timora. Now, they take the top spot in this most comprehensive of lists, I think you will agree. Academic Shakespearean exploration at its finest. It's a deathly dark triple header from the blood-soaked Titus Andronicus. Now, the play starts with General Titus Andronicus returning from war with a slightly fewer sons than he had when he started with, and, spoiler alert, he loses a few more along the way. There are 14 deaths altogether in Titus Andronicus, and highlights include Alarbus, ritually sacrificed, Mutius and Basinius, stabbed to death, Martius and Quintus, framed for murder and executed. Lavinia has her tongue and her hands cut off before being killed. And of course Aaron, poor old Aaron, who is simply buried up to his chest outside the city walls and left to die of starvation. I just imagine his arms are kind of sandwiched in. He's just kind of there, just the shoulders poking out. Shoulders and maybe just a little bit of nipple just poking out the earth. And he's just kind of there, just packed into the soil. An awful way to go. But I think for the sheer creativity, the absolute gross factor that we're all so desperately hungry for, the number one spot goes to the brothers Chiron, Demetrius, and their mother Timora. Now, the brothers cross Titus in the worst possible way, and he repays them. He repays them by having them murdered, okay? It's pretty upsetting. But then he has their flesh stripped from their bones, cut up into little meaty cubes, baked into a pie, which are then fed to their own hungry mother. Their own starving mother sits at the table and she wolfs down those pies, my friends. She wolfs down those pies like you wouldn't believe. He actually reveals, does Titus, right at the final crumb being hoovered up, the following speech. Why? There are they both, baked in that pie, whereof their mother daintily hath fed, eating the flesh that she herself hath bred. 'Tis true, 'tis true. Witness my knife's sharp point. And he stabs her, lasting one whole line before being stabbed himself, after which follows a bloodbath worthy of just a real hard 18 rating. The last remaining survivor, Aaron, as I mentioned, is buried up to his chest, left to die of thirst and starvation. But the thing is, even in the final moments, some of his final lines boil down to essentially, no regrets. I have no regrets. Good for him. 14 characters die in Titus Andronicus, and though some may claim that other plays have slightly higher death tolls, hundreds of soldiers here, sea shipwrecks and sailors being abandoned and taken out by storms, these are all characters that we meet. 14 characters that we meet, that we spend time with, and then they all snuff it in the most foul and creative ways. So there you have it. William Shakespeare. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. You never know. Try it. You might like it. Not unlike Marmite. This is a conversation I have all the time. People hate Marmite. I quite like Marmite. Just give it a go. You never know. You might surprise yourself. Well, that was the 7 most grim, ghastly, and slightly amusing deaths in William Shakespeare. Did you enjoy this? Was it rubbish? Was it good? Shall we do more of these things? I want to play around with the YouTube channel a little bit. I don't want to keep doing just re-uploads of stuff that goes onto Facebook. I quite like the idea of doing slightly more talky, waffly, into-camera nonsense here. Maybe we can explore some of the old histories and that. We'll always keep it on topic. Always going to be something a bit deathly and dark and horrible. But yeah, cracking. If you've enjoyed it, You know the drill. If you're on the YouTubes, you got the liking, the commenting, the sharing. You're already subscribed, probably. If you haven't, you should. You should, because it'll bring me validation in my 40s. Yeah, that's right. I'm 40 years old and I'm uploading videos to YouTube. Fight me.